Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 166.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the CashFlow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other CashFlow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, and welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and today we're going to talk about something that I know that's on your mind. You've heard me talk about my story more than once. You know, how when we got started, we had a credit score of 398. That's right, 398. I did not put those numbers in the wrong order. That's exactly where it started. And oftentimes I'm asked, how on earth did you get started in real estate even with such a horrible credit score? Well, that's a story for another time. Today's guest, however, is going to help you figure out how you can build your credit that is based upon your EIN. And in fact, you may not even know what that is, but we're going to talk about it. Credit that is not linked to your SSN, otherwise known as your social security number. So we're going to do our best to help you overcome a hurdle and possibly expand the possibilities. Today's guest is Ty Crandall. He's an internationally known speaker, author, and business credit expert with over 16 years of financial experience. Ty has become the authority in business credit building, business credit scoring, and business credit repair. Now, he's authored 2 books on the subject, Perfect Credit and Business Credit Decoded, which in and of itself, it sounds like that decoding is highly necessary. And he's also the CEO of Credit Suite. Help me welcome Ty Crandall. Ty, you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much for having me.
I'm glad that you are here because I'm told you have a whole bunch of secrets in your head that we need to know.
Well, I'd like to reveal them here for you today.
Good. Now, before we go down the whole I'll call it credit rabbit hole, I always ask the very same question at the beginning. I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs, of course, you being one, like yesterday's superheroes, Batman, Superman, Superwoman, and especially as, movies like The Avengers are, very, very popular. They tend to do something very similar to today's entrepreneurs. They get dressed up, they occasionally use special tools, and they go around saving people in their own special way. And I feel like entrepreneurs do the same thing. However, before they were super, they were just, normal people per se. So what I'd love to know is, before you were an internationally known speaker, author, and business credit expert, who is Ty Crandall?
Well, I appreciate that opportunity. I like a lot of the people on your show as an entrepreneur. I came from the military and knew that I had a passion for running and owning a business. And obviously, when I think you get into a business, you find that it's a lot more difficult and a lot more time consuming than you had initially intended. So I got in as an entrepreneur, and the first company I actually owned was a mortgage company. And I actually built that company up in the height of the mortgage industry. And I was there for the crash of the mortgage industry. So it was quite interesting because I got a firsthand look at exactly what businesses look like when things are going well, and seeing a business crash down under circumstances that were, for the most part, mostly out of my control. And in this process, unfortunately, I lost basically everything I had because I personally guaranteed a lot of my business debts, which is what I think a lot of entrepreneurs do because we just didn't know any better. I just didn't know any better at the time. So it was one thing to unfortunately have to actually lose my business, but it was a whole other thing to basically see my whole personal life destroyed, from losing cars and homes to credit, to some similar circumstances that you went through, all because I put my personal, guarantee, my own personal finances on the line for my business. So after that, and I started to get back on my feet again, helping people build personal credit or repair their personal credit from what had taken place, I quickly realized and discovered what business credit was, and was shocked. I was shocked to realize there was a whole world out there of people being able to get money without personally guaranteeing it, and not take on those risks that I took on, and not have the devastating effects that I went through. And I was just shocked to discover that, one, this was out there, and two, there were no advocates that were standing at the highest mountain screaming about it. So I decided to become that advocate, and ever since then, for the past many years, I've been a real advocate for business credit, helping entrepreneurs understand that there's this whole world of money out there that anybody can access, and in doing so, they can keep their personal finances safe, eliminate that personal liability. So maybe a little bit longer than you'd intended, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of a good idea of where I come from in my background.
No, that was perfect in so many different ways. I mean, I think one of the things you're speaking of that's I hope many people pick up, if nothing else, from what you just said, is that when you see a need, go fill a need, because there's probably a business there. And you said there were no advocates, and you're absolutely right. And this is also why I was thinking the Business Credit Decoded book made it rang kind of true to me, because I'm like, what is this mystery thing, that's known as business credit? But before we go there, because I know everybody wants to understand that credit, because I do too. However, there was something that you said that I've just got to acknowledge. First of all, thank you for your service in the military, because that's just always important to me.
Oh, thank you for that.
But you said that you were there for the crash. You had a personal front seat ride right there in the front of the roller coaster. But talk to us about, just in case some individuals may not know, talk to us about the personal guarantee and what that means, because you mentioned it. Some people may. I just want to make sure everyone knows why that's important, and it's something to pay attention to.
Well, whenever you personally guarantee anything, then what happens is you basically become personally liable for that debt. So what a lot of entrepreneurs, including myself, did is, if you obtain a credit card, if you obtain a credit line for your business, a lot of us believe, just because our business name is on that card, that the business is liable, but that's not the case. In almost all cases, when you obtain credit, when you obtain credit lines and bank financing, when you obtain anywhere from, credit cards to bank loans, you're personally guaranteeing that debt. So that means if anything were to happen, if you were to go late on that, if you were to default on that debt, then unfortunately they can come after you personally. They can come after your personal assets, your home, your vehicles, your stocks, any assets that you have. So what happens is, that means if anything were to happen with your business, and Jay, let's admit, most people don't think anything is going to happen to their business. They believe that they're going to be highly successful. But when you look at something like the mortgage crash, this is something in a lot of cases that's out of our control. And unfortunately, those type of events put 75% plus of businesses out of business. So if that were to happen, and I were to have had business debts or business credit cards, loans that I had personally guaranteed, then that means they could then come after the assets of the business and turn around and then come after my personal assets, taking everything I have of value until they get paid back.
And I think right there, we just scared half the people. So
it wasn't my intention, I promise.
I know, but that's exactly why I wanted you to say it, is because that's one of the things that fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know, because of the situation of how I got started, I learned early terms like non-recourse, because I had to. There was no other way for me to, get started otherwise and make things work. Now, but before we go down that, what I would love you to hear, because I'm sure right now someone is thinking, well, if I don't sign for it personally, how on earth what am I going to do? How am I going to get quote unquote credit if I don't sign for it personally? Would you dare answer that question?
Sure. I mean, it's the same thing as every, highly successful company CEO does. So if you look at, for example, Tim Cook with Apple, obviously he doesn't personally guarantee the $100 million plus credit lines that Apple gets.
That would be funny.
That would be funny, nor did his predecessor Steve Jobs do the same. I mean, what happens is a business usually grows to a level where we have financial savvy people come in, such as CFOs, and they recognize that the business has to have its own credit profile and grow on its own. Because if you grow a successful business, the business is designed to outgrow your personal credit. So what most don't realize is that just as you have credit linked to your social security number, your business has its own credit profile and score that's linked to its EIN number. And with very little effort, once you obtain some credit for that EIN, then what happens is the EIN, the business itself, can then stand on its own. So it itself can go out and get vendor credit. It can get store credit cards. It can get, cash or credit such as Visa cards and credit lines without the owner needing to supply their social, without them needing to supply a personal guarantee because the business stands on its own. So that's how every highly successful business in this country does it. It's just a matter of what a lot of entrepreneurs don't know is that even starting out, you can actually do it the exact same way and not personally guarantee the debt, not even have this credit that you're obtaining roll over to your personal credit reports.
So then in this particular case, you're saying if I hypothetically speaking, let's say I'm out there, if I'm fixing or flipping or rehabbing something very, very large, I could have my business go out there and have a very, very nice credit line with, say, Home Depot or my vendor or supplier, and being able to have the business liable for that, not necessarily myself. That's what I'm hearing. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's spot on correct. And as a matter of fact, a lot of the people that we see actually build their business credit within 1 to 2 years to have high limit credit lines and credit cards that they're even able to use to purchase real estate.
Got it. Now, you said something that I think everybody was thinking, and I know I just was. You said 1 to 2 years. So this isn't, I'm not going to be able to come to you today and say tomorrow have a credit profile of any substantive area or reach.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about business credit. When you talk about consumer credit, the FICO score is very complicated. It's based on 5 factors. And when it includes factors such as credit mix, length of credit history, utilization, these are things that are very hard to control. So you have to have 6 months of building credit for FICO to even give you a score, and many, many years of well-disciplined borrowing to get a really good score. Business credit world is much, much faster than that, because if you get vendor accounts that report to the business credit reporting agencies, within 30 to 90 days, you'll have a score. And once you have that score and profile, you can then start to get accounts such as at Lowe's, for example, that you'd mentioned right away. So you can start getting store credit a very short period of time. First of all, you can get vendor credit immediately, which are, supplies, Uline, Quill, office supplies, working supplies. You can get those immediately, get what you need for your business, and build your credit in the process. And then in a very short period of time, in about 90 days or less, you start getting store credit cards. And in about 6 months total, you can start to get $5,000 or $10,000 Visa or MasterCard credit cards. But when I was talking about getting into a year to 2 years, that's when you start building 100 or 200,000 in real cash credit. Not when you start getting it, but when you've built it to that level of 100, 200,000 where you could make really large purchases. Might take that long.
Got it. Now, when you've made some distinctions that I know that I'm not overly familiar with, when you said you're making a distinction between vendor credit, store credit, and then you said something called the cash credit. Could you help me understand that a little bit?
Sure. When you usually, an average person starts a consumer credit profile with secured credit cards, with very small limit credit cards, or for example, having somebody co-sign with them on a loan. Well, in the business world, those things really aren't popular. Most people start building business credit with what are referred to as vendor accounts. And these are vendors such as, I'll use Quill as an example. Well, Quill is a popular office supply store. So they sell office supplies, And if you go to them, they'll give you a net 30 account, which means it's not a revolving credit account where you could make a minimum payment on it each month. Instead, if you use and buy, their credit and buy $100 worth of credit, you have 30 days to pay back that $100 in full. So a vendor credit is really not revolving terms. These are more of net 30 terms where you have 30 days to pay back the credit in full, unlike revolving accounts. So once you have about 5 of these type of accounts, then you'll have a business credit profile, score, and you'll have trade lines established with the business reporting agencies. So then you can go into a Lowe's. Lowe's can pull your EIN number. You could even leave your social security number off the application. They'll see these 5 accounts. They'll see your payment history that you're paying as agreed. You'll already have a good score because all it takes is paying your accounts on time. Then you can move into getting store credit cards. And these are, credit cards at stores that you're used to now: Walmart, Target, Best Buy, Amazon.com, Dell, Apple, Home Depot, Lowe's, Sam's Club, Costco. Most major retailers offer business credit cards just like they offer store consumer credit cards. And once you have about 10 total accounts, then you can move into the third stage, which is what I call cash credit, which are just like Visa cards or MasterCards or American Express or Discover cards that you could use anywhere for any purpose. So those are really the 3 stages of building business credit. You start with vendor accounts, you move into store credit, and then you move into actual cash credit, which is Visa, American Express type credit cards.
You should not tell me how to go to the Apple store more than I already do. That's just not good.
It's dangerous. I understand.
That's just not good. Okay, so with that being the case, you're in essence, it's almost like growing up a little, human that has its own credit profile, and over time, it can stand, because it can stand on its own. It has the companies end up issuing credit as if it's, has very substantive credit lines itself. Now, let me ask you this question: what type of, if someone's out there listening to you right now, what type of revenues is it going to take, say, for, $100,000 cash credit line? How does that really, what kind of revenues are they going to need to be producing to be able to even come close to that?
Well, in a lot of cases, it's not strictly based on revenue. What it's based on is it's based on their existing credit profile. So, for example, when you apply for a personal credit card, if you go in there with a 750 credit score, tons of credit, everything paid as agreed, well, they're going to give you an approval. Part of it has to do with the actual income you put on the application, but most of it has to do with your credit profile leading the way. The same thing is possible for business credit. So what they're looking for in revenue is to make sure that you have enough revenue to pay back what you're borrowing. The same as if you're applying for a consumer credit card, they need to make sure you have enough income to be able to pay back what you're borrowing. But it's really the credit profile itself that will determine the approval amount. So, for example, if you're going in and you have $70,000 and $100,000 credit lines, well, then it's not that difficult to turn around and get more of those kind of credit lines. So a lot of it's based on the credit profile that you've built, and less to do with the revenue. The revenue just needs to support that you can obviously make those payments.
Got it. So let's pretend I'm just now starting my business like today. Obviously, what's the likelihood of me getting even the first level of accounts? I think you called them vendor accounts, the net 30s.
Well, it's very good if you have a general idea of what the credit issuer is looking for. And we kind of call this the secret, approval formula, because every lender has about 20 points they look at to make sure that you're credible in their eyes to issue you credit. Basically, they want to make sure that you're not somebody that's using a home address and a home cell phone, and you don't even have a legitimate business. So this is really about, first of all, they must have the perception that you have a legitimate business. So if you are working from home and you use a virtual address, for example, but which means you're using an address from a real business, maybe even if you just get your mail there, well, that looks a lot better than if you're using a home address. If you're using a toll-free number from a place like Ring Central, that's going to carry a lot more weight than putting your cell phone number. So what I tell our clients is you want to look at an application and scrutinize every single box, every single question that's being asked, and make sure that the answer you're putting in there validates that you're a credible business. You want a business address. You want to have a toll-free business number, a fax number. You need to have a website. You need to have an email address. And Jay, it needs to be a professional email address. I mean, partychick2009@yahoo.com. That's not going to carry much weight with the lender. So it's just about making sure you have the perception of being a credible business. Make sure you have the licensing intact. Make sure that you're entering your corporation name as it is on your corporation papers into the application. And if you meet that kind of basic credibility requirements, then there's a lot of vendors such as Lockwood and Associates, Uline, Quill, Reliable Office Supplies that will then give you credit right away. Now, don't get me wrong. Some of them, like Uline and Quill, might make you apply and a few times and purchase $25 or $50 worth of stuff before they approve you. But they will approve a brand new startup business. Some of them, like Lockwood and Associates, if you have a 411 and an EIN, they'll give you a credit. Others, like Quill and Uline, might make you place 2 or 3 orders to give you the initial credit. But this initial credit is invaluable because that's what builds that initial business credit profile and score. And once that's established, you can then start to get on to the next steps of store credit much easier.
Got it. And you mentioned something called a 411?
Sure. Well, every phone number, one of the basic requirements for business credit, well, there's 2 really. You need to have an EIN and you need to have your phone number listed with 411. So as long as your phone number is listed with 411 and as long as you have an EIN number, then a lot of the sources that I just named, for example, and many more, will then approve you for initial credit, which is the first step of really establishing that business credit profile that helps you get to the future credit down the road.
Got it. So when it comes to it, it sounds, I mean, you're almost making this sound way too easy, Ty. How come more people don't know? How come there, like you said, there's no advocate? Where's the sounding bullhorn? Where's the 1995 you can have personal credit on TV advertising? Where are all those things?
That's what really surprised me is that when I first started to look into business credit, I went about 5 pages deep in Google before I found any good content. And if you're like me, if it doesn't exist on the first page of Google, well, then it just doesn't exist. And I think that that's one of the biggest things is when you walk into Target, they offer you a credit card every time you check out. But they never have done that on the business side. No entrepreneur walks into stores and are offered a business credit card without liability. Because let's be realistic. If you're willing to give Target your social, if you're willing to take on the personal liability, there's no reason that they would tell you that you don't have to do that. They like the system where it is, where mostly larger companies that have CFOs figure out and know how to do this, while the small entrepreneurs that are just getting started don't know how to do this. So even though credit is really predominant in the world because it's pushed by the credit issuers, in the business world, that's not the case. They don't promote this heavily because they want the people that know the secret handshake, being the higher end, more successful companies, to be the only ones that get in. And if they started promoting this everywhere, well, then even your startup entrepreneurs would get in, which statistically have a much higher failure rate. So the system works the way that it is because the credit issuers like it that way. And as a result, there aren't a ton of advocates out there promoting it because, for example, if I help you get a Visa card, I don't get paid in doing so from Visa. So there's just not a lot of services out there around that for that reason. And credit issuers don't really promote business credit. So statistically, I think entrepreneur.com reports that about 90% of business owners just don't know anything about it as a result.
That's interesting. So, well, that almost begs the question. If, you're helping us clearly get credit lines and all those types of things, why on earth did you decide to put on this superhero outfit and let us know these?
Are you learning anything about credit today? I know I've been enlightened. As you continue to listen to the rest of the interview, just remember there's so many more options out there than we even have a clue about. Speaking of options and having a clue, one of the things you probably want to do is learn how to play the cash flow game with individuals. Most importantly, if you'd like to win one at absolutely no cost, all you got to do is go over to iTunes and leave a written review. Remember, leave a written review and you'll be entered to win. Every Monday, we are doing a drawing for a new cash flow game. If you'd like to get one for free sent to you, all you got to do is go to iTunes and leave a review. Now, let's go find out why Ty decided to put on the superhero outfit in the first place.
Well, I have went through my share of struggles of starting businesses and using your own money to do so. I mean, 75% of entrepreneurs use their family's money or their own money to get started, and even higher percentage use their own personal credit to get started. And as you know, when you're trying to just use your own money to grow the business, it gets really tricky because you've got limited profits, especially the beginning. You have to decide between paying yourself or growing the company. And these are decisions that we all
Hold on. Paying yourself? What do you mean?
that's
I'm sorry. I'm not familiar with that term.
this is what business is all about. We work very little hours. We make tremendous amounts of money with little work. Didn't you know this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just like and you know what? I'm on the beach right now.
Well, I think we believe that this is the possibility when we get in, and then we're quickly overwhelmed with the reality of we have to figure things out really quickly or we're done. And when you look statistically, the SBA says the two largest reasons for business failure have to do with lack of experience and lack of money. And the funny thing is that money fixes both of those, because if you have more money, you can afford to make more mistakes as you're figuring things out. So that to me is really what's important, is that entrepreneurs need a fair shake. You and I feel the same. If we have faith in the entrepreneur's ability to succeed, for them to go out, and I love the analogy that you have of being superheroes, because that's how we feel too. But we need more superheroes out there, and there aren't as many as they should, and many don't have the chance of success, all because they don't have access to money. And here there is this treasure trove of money that anybody can get that people just don't know about. So once I discovered that, it just becomes impossible not to become an advocate to promote it to other entrepreneurs.
So, and I guess this kind of gets me I'm kind of, interested to know what's like the top end that you've seen or helped someone actually achieve, and in what time frame was that?
Well, 100,000 to 200,000 in real usable cash credit is something that we'll commonly see between 1 to 2 years. So, once they build to a point, I think within 6 months to a year, we usually see somebody get to at least $50,000 or $100,000 in real usable credit. But at that point, it's a combination of store credit, vendor credit, and cash credit. Then once that's established, then we start to see people get to 100, 200,000 in real usable cash credit between year 1 to 2. And that's where they're starting to use it to invest in much larger things, such as commercial buildings and those type of things.
Yeah, well, you know what's on my mind. I'm sitting here going, okay, well, if I can do that, let's go absolutely go buy another commercial building. That would be awesome. Now, you mentioned Uline and Quill, and I'm just thinking, how much office supplies do I really have to buy to actually make that worth it? I mean, you mentioned something about $25 and $50. Is it can you literally do it? Just go buy a box of pens and we're good?
Yeah, and that's the beauty of business credit, is unlike consumer credit, which takes into account. So, for example, 30% of your consumer credit score is the utilization. So if you have a credit limit of $1,000 and you use more than $300 on that card, you actually lower your score. So as a result of that, it's tougher to get a really good score because you get credit. Okay, when you get credit, your scores go down because you have inquiries. As you use your credit, then your scores go down because of utilization. So it's very complicated. It's messy. But when you look at the business world, such as the Paydex score offered by Dun & Bradstreet, which is the most popular business credit score that's out there, it's only based on payment history. That's it. So to win the game, all you have to do is get credit that reports, pay it on time or early, and you instantly have a good score. So because it's so easy to get a good score, then factors like your utilization and other aspects that really affect the FICO score don't really have an impact on things such as the Paydex score. So yes, you can get in with a $50 order and still have the same impact to your score as if it was a $500 order.
So then you just mentioned Paydex. Tell us what that is, because I'm guessing there may be a number of individuals who might not know.
Well, the Paydex score is the primary credit score offered in the business credit scoring world, and it's offered by a company called Dun & Bradstreet. Now, if you're not familiar with Dun & Bradstreet, a lot of entrepreneurs aren't. Dun & Bradstreet is the biggest credit reporting agency, period. They've been around, decades before even the first consumer reporting agency existed. So Dun & Bradstreet has about 10 times the record of the next biggest business credit reporting agency, which is Experian. So they are the dominant factor, the dominant player in business credit reporting. And they offer many credit scores, but one known as the Paydex score, which really is the main business credit score used to assess risk in the business world. So that's the credit score that's predominantly used for credit issuers to determine whether you can or can't qualify for credit that they might issue you.
Got it. So is this one of those things where I can go online and check it too?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can, and that's what's scary about business credit is unlike your FICO scores where somebody needs what the Fair Credit Reporting Act calls permissible purpose to pull your credit. Anybody can pull your business credit. I can pull your business credit. I can pull any of the people that actually come and check out your show's business credit. So anybody that wants your business credit can get your business credit. They can see your highest trade line, how you pay your bills, the number of employees you have, the size of your company. Anybody can get your business credit, including yourself.
You realize this is starting to sound a little Big Brother scary style right there.
It is kind of scary because, you can imagine that if you ever want to sell your business, and a lot of people have the end goal of selling their business, that anybody can access your business credit profile. So, of course, every buyer is going to be interested. And this is why it's so important that you know and own your own business credit, because your customers, your prospects, your clients, any of these people have access to that information.
Wow, that's absolutely crazy. So, having dealt with a number of, international investors, we have a number of people who, from Canada or the UK or Germany or what have you, that, work with us in projects. I'm just curious, is this something that, you don't have to necessarily be a U.S. citizen, do you, to make this work? You just have to have a U.S. company and an EIN number?
That's correct. And that's one of the beauties of business credit is we deal with all types of legitimate business financing that exist. And as you know, most of that financing requires a personal guarantee. Most of it requires a U.S. Social Security number to get approved. But the beauty of business credit is that, just as you said, if you have a U.S. corporation, if it meets those credibility requirements, such as, having a physical address or a virtual address that looks like a physical address and phone number and website and those type of things, if it's a legitimate business, the business can get credit for the EIN regardless of if the business owner has a social. As a matter of fact, the way you should build business credit is that even though the social field is on the application, you leave it blank. You don't let them pull your personal credit because you can quickly build the EIN credit where it stands on its own. And when you leave the social off the app, you're forcing them to pull the EIN credit. So business credit is perfect for international investors.
Huh. Well, look at that. All right. That's absolutely neat. Now, let's hypothetically speaking here, what is the, likelihood of approval? So say someone, I'm thinking about right now, just so you know, I'm kind of wishing I knew you, a few years ago when I was first getting started, but that's okay. We're not going to be upset about that. I'm just going to pretend that we're back there. So I come to you, I'm like, hey, Ty, I got a 398. What can I do? What's my first step?
Well, the first step is to make sure that you meet these requirements for credibility. We're going to walk through and make sure that your business is set up credibly per a lender or credit issuer standards. And again, some of those things I talked about, the website, the email address, making sure you have proper licensing and a physical address, just making sure you have the perception of being a real credible business. And then the next step is you move right on to the accounts that we talked about, things like Uline, Reliable, Quill, Lachlan, and start getting credit and using the credit that you're getting from them. Once you do so, Dun & Bradstreet requires or promotes that it takes up to 3 reporting cycles for those accounts to report to them, so up to 90 days. So as you start to get that credit and pay the bill and make sure you pay the bill on time or early, then it reports to the business credit reporting agencies. So you'll want to grab some kind of credit monitoring, especially with Dun & Bradstreet and Experian, to see those accounts being reported. And once you have 5 of those type of accounts, then you want to move on to getting revolving store credit. And once you get about 10 total accounts, that's when you'll then take the step in about 6 months of moving on to cash credit. So in the beginning stages, making sure you're set up credibly, and then using your new credible business to go in and start applying for vendor account. Those are the 2 primary steps that will build that initial business credit profile and score.
Got it. And you mentioned reporting, so I can't just open the account and not use it, is what you're saying. I got to do something with it and it's showing payment.
Right, absolutely. As we talked about with the Paydex score is based on payment history. So the beautiful thing about these accounts is it doesn't matter if you buy $50 or $500 worth of stuff. What matters is that you use the account and that you pay the bill timely. As long as you do those 2 things, that's what will establish that business credit profile and score for you.
Got it. And then you mentioned it sounded like a new type of an account, and I think I know what you mean, but I just want to make sure. You said something about a revolving account versus, I'm assuming that's different than the net 30.
Well, yeah, that is. I mean, the net 30 are vendor accounts. Those are accounts that are given to you for 30 days to pay back that bill in its entirety, not revolving terms. But the minute you start moving into store credit cards and cash credit cards, well, those are revolving credit accounts. So those are accounts that you could spend $500 on and make a minimum payment of $25 on until you pay off the balance.
Got it. Totally understood. Now, is it possible? I'm just curious. Have you ever run into a situation where someone probably already has these Paydex scores and all this other stuff, but they don't know it?
Well, it is possible, but rare. I mean, 95% of trade vendors out there don't report to the reporting agencies. So if there's a trick, if there's a complication, there's a couple things that we see. People run into issues because they include the social on the application. You can't do that because in doing so, you're volunteering a personal guarantee, and they're going to pull your personal credit if you put that personal social on that credit report. So that's a mistake that you absolutely have to avoid. And the other thing is you need to make sure that you're getting accounts that actually report to the reporting agencies, because 95% of trade credit doesn't report. So if there's a trick to getting approved for business credit, that's what it really comes down to. It's that starting phase, starting vendors, finding vendors that will give you credit even if you have none already, that actually report to the business reporting agencies.
Got it. You run the danger of creating a whole bunch of jobs if you keep this up, Ty.
Well, look, I'm just trying to put more superheroes out there.
Yes, and have them dressed in something other than a beat up Pinto and ratty suits, I guess. Hey,
that's right.
Let's give us a shot. Excellent. So I know if anyone is like me, they're seeing the opportunity that lies here. I guess the question becomes, I'm sure at some point somebody's going, tell me, Ty, what I do next. I mean, if I'm ready to put on that superhero outfit, but like you said, just need access to a little bit more capital, this is clearly a viable way of doing so. What's the next step? How do we find out more with you, Ty? Guide us through.
Well, they can go to our webpage, creditsuite.com, and get a ton of information about us. But they can also go to creditsuite.com/EIN credit. That's creditsuite.com, and Credit Suite is SUITE. So creditsuite, SUITE.com/EIN credit. And there they can actually grab a free 4-step guide that will walk them through in depth the process of building business credit. It will outline the 4 essential steps to actually building credit for your EIN that's not linked to your social security number.
That's awesome. And so in theory, by the time they're done today, that they could easily be well down this path to make it happen. So I guess with that, is when it comes to the stores that give these net 30 accounts, etc., are they always office supply stores? Because I'm just like, man, I don't need that much paper.
Well, they're actually not. I mean, there's a large variety of them out there, but there is no question that you're right. I mean, sometimes with vendor accounts, you have to make a sacrifice. You have to buy more supplies or buy some things that you wouldn't normally buy, and that's the sacrifice of getting that initial business credit, and that's a sacrifice we have to make because 95% of trade vendors don't report to the reporting agencies. But, there are companies like Lachlan and Associates that offer corporations services. There's a great company out there called Monopolize Your Marketplace that actually deals with marketing information. If you're talking about a Quill or Reliable, they do sell actual office supplies. Uline actually sells shipping supplies. So you kind of have a nice mix there of some starter vendors. Even a company called Creditera, well, they offer business credit monitoring. So that's something that anybody needs, and even consumer credit monitoring. So amongst all those sources that I provided, you have somebody that offers office supplies and shipping supplies, and somebody that offers, credit monitoring and corporation services and marketing services. So that's a good mix of accounts that you can get to get started.
Got it. Well, it looks like we're well on the path to making this happen. So let me ask you this. What would you say to that new entrepreneur who's considering putting on their superhero outfit for the first time? They haven't started, but they're considering started. What would you say if they're still feeling a little nervous?
Stop thinking about it and get started. The key to this is just taking action. And that's what's beautiful is that, with the free guide that I just gave you a link to, it's going to outline the steps. And in this show, we've talked about the actual steps, but it all comes down to getting started. And the sooner you get started, somebody can literally start this process today and get their first vendor accounts today. And it's so rewarding when you're seeing those kind of approvals and those kind of cards come in your mailbox instead of bills every month.
Yes.
So it all comes down to just getting started, jumping in with both feet, following the steps we outlined and just taking the first step.
Well, I definitely appreciate, Ty, you taking the time here. You may have just created a few more jobs than some of our politicians. So we definitely appreciate you taking the time to invest with us here at the Cashflow Diary.
Well, I really, really appreciate the invite, and I really, really am honored to be here as a guest. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, guess what time it is? It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. I bet you didn't need me to tell you to do that one today. You're going to go straight over to Credit Suite, get the information you need, but also go get that free guide. Remember, creditsuite.com/EIN credit, because I know you're thinking about it. You're like, maybe this is a possibility. Quit wondering if it's a possibility. Go now. Make it happen. You're already listening on the mobile device. It also has a web browser. Go right on over there. Get it. That way you get started. Start the inertia towards the dream that you know you want to create. It's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.